It's 11 p.m. You did nothing wrong today. And then out of nowhere, your brain opens a folder you didn't ask for. That thing you said in ninth grade. The name you got wrong in front of a room full of people. The joke that landed with silence. You didn't request this file. It opened itself, in full detail, complete with sound. Why does this happen? Why years later, does one wrong sentence still have the power to make you physically wince in the dark? The easy answer is that you're overthinking. The real answer is stranger than that and slightly embarrassing on its own. Your brain isn't tormenting you at random, it's holding open a case it has never let itself close. Start with what's actually happening in your head. In the year 2000, psychologist Thomas Gilovich at Cornell University ran an experiment that reshaped how we understand embarrassment. He had students wear an embarrassing t-shirt into a room full of strangers, then asked them to guess how many people had noticed. The students guessed nearly half the room. The real number was closer to 1 in 4. Gilovich called this the spotlight effect. You believe you're the main character in everyone else's story. You're not. Most people are too busy starring in their own. But here's the strange part. Knowing this doesn't make the memories stop. You can understand the spotlight effect perfectly, recite the statistics, nod along, and still lie awake replaying the time you tripped in front of your crush. So why would your brain keep reopening a case it already knows? Statistically, was never that serious, because your brain isn't grading the memory on how bad it actually was. It's grading it on whether it was ever properly closed. Picture two kinds of memory. One is complete. Something happened, you understood why, everyone moved on. The story has an ending. The other is unfinished. Something happened, and you never got to see how it actually landed. Did people talk about it after you left? Did it change how they saw you? You don't know, and you never will. And your brain treats that missing ending as a problem still waiting to be solved. This idea has a name in memory research, the unfinished task effect, first documented by psychologist Zeigarnik in the 1920s, when she noticed waiters could recall unpaid orders in perfect detail, but forgot completed ones almost instantly. The moment a bill was settled, the memory of it faded fast. The moment it stayed open, it lingered, sharp and specific, refusing to move to the back of the mind. Your embarrassing memories work the same way. They're not stored as facts. They're stored as open cases, and open cases get reopened. Neuroscientist James McGaugh spent decades studying why some memories get filed, with far more detail than others. His research at the University of California, Irvine, showed that the amygdala, working alongside stress hormones released in emotional moments, essentially highlights certain memories in bright ink, marking them as important enough to keep close at hand. An ordinary Tuesday from 6 years ago is gone completely. The Tuesday you said the wrong thing in front of everyone is filed in high definition, time-stamped, ready to surface without warning. Your brain didn't decide this consciously. It happened automatically in the moment before you had any say in the matter. Here's the part that makes the whole thing land differently. Social pain doesn't just feel bad the way disappointment feels bad. It uses some of the same wiring your brain uses for physical pain. Research led by social psychologist Naomi Eisenberger at UCLA found that social rejection activates regions of the brain also responsible for processing actual physical injury. When your brain reopens an embarrassing memory, it isn't just recalling an awkward moment. In some ways, it's rerunning a wound, using circuitry that never fully learned the difference between being hurt and being humiliated. Which raises the obvious question: if the moment happened once, years ago, and nothing bad came of it, why does the case stay open at all? Shouldn't your brain eventually decide there's nothing left to solve? The answer traces back to how humans actually lived for most of our existence. Early human groups were small, tightly bound bands, where the same faces saw each other every single day, sometimes for an entire lifetime. Reputation wasn't a passing concern, it was closer to currency. One bad impression could shape how the whole group treated you for years. And there was no other town to move to, no fresh start a few miles away. In that world, an unresolved social mistake genuinely was unfinished business, worth revisiting, worth analysing from every angle, because the people who saw it happen were the same people you'd be standing next to tomorrow. Your brain still assumes that's the world you're living in. It doesn't know the cashier who saw you fumble your card 3 years ago has no memory of your face at all, let alone the moment itself. It doesn't know that the classmate who watched you trip in the hallway, moved cities, changed jobs, and hasn't thought about that hallway in a decade. As far as your brain is concerned, none of that has happened. The case is still active, the same faces are still watching, and closing the file too early could cost you standing you can't afford to lose. There's a reason these memories hit hardest specifically at night too, and it isn't a coincidence. During the day, your attention is pulled in a dozen directions. Conversations, tasks, notifications, deadlines. Open cases get pushed down the queue simply because there's no room to process them. But at night, once the noise stops and the mind finally has space, the queue clears, and whatever's been sitting unresolved finally gets its turn. This isn't your brain punishing you on purpose. It's your brain using the first quiet moment it's had all day to try, once again, to close a file it never got to finish. So what do you actually do with a system like this? You can't force a file closed just by telling yourself to stop thinking about it. That's not how the process works, but you can change the ending it's missing. Gilovich's research didn't only show that people notice less than you assume. Later work building on it showed people also forget dramatically faster than you assume. The stranger who saw you trip outside the coffee shop wasn't replaying it 5 minutes later. They were already narrating their own day, their own worries, their own imagined spotlight, because they have one too. Everyone does. It might be the strangest shared secret in the entire species. Almost nobody is reviewing your case as closely as you are. There's actual evidence for this, not just a comforting turn of phrase. Psychologist James Pennebaker at the University of Texas ran a series of studies in the 1980s asking people to write in detail about their most stressful or embarrassing experiences for just a few minutes a day. The people who wrote things out, who forced the memory into a finished sentence with a beginning, middle, and end, reported fewer intrusive thoughts about the event in the weeks that followed. Something about giving the memory a fixed final shape on paper satisfied the part of the brain that kept demanding an ending. It didn't erase what happened. It closed the file anyway, on the brain's own terms, instead of waiting for a closing statement from a jury that was never coming. This lines up almost perfectly with what Zeigarnik found in that restaurant decades earlier. The waiters didn't need the bill paid by the actual customer to stop thinking about it. They just needed some version of resolution, some marker that told the brain the task was finished. Your embarrassing memories are looking for the exact same thing, not forgiveness from the people who witnessed it, most of whom have already forgotten. Just a version of the story that feels complete enough to stop demanding your attention every time the room goes quiet. Think about how many awkward moments you've personally witnessed other people have. Now try to recall even half of them in real detail. You probably can't, and it's not because you're unkind. It's because you were the one narrating your own story that day, too busy running your own case files to give someone else's stumble more than a passing glance. That gap between how intensely you experience your own embarrassment and how briefly anyone else experiences it is enormous, and almost nobody accounts for it in the moment. Modern life makes this stranger, not simpler. In the past, an awkward moment eventually faded because there was no permanent record, just memory slowly softening around the edges. That mercy doesn't always apply anymore. A message resurfaces in a group chat. A photo gets tagged years later. A video reappears in your feed at the worst possible time. Your brain, still running on rules built for small, permanent communities, treats every resurfaced fragment as current, not historical. It doesn't register that 6 years passed. As far as the amygdala is concerned, it might as well be happening for the first time tonight. You can see this same open case instinct in smaller, quieter habits too. Ones you might not have connected to any of this before. The way you reread a text you sent, checking whether the tone landed wrong. The way an unanswered message can feel louder than one that got a reply, even a bad one. The way a conversation that ended awkwardly sticks with you far longer than one that ended in laughter. Even if the awkward one was 3 minutes long and forgotten by the other person before they reached their car, every one of these is the same file closing instinct, just wearing a different outfit. Your brain isn't asking whether the moment was catastrophic. It's asking whether the story ever got to finish, and until it does, some part of you keeps the tab open, waiting for a version of the ending it can finally file away. So the next time it's 11 p.m. and that old file opens itself without permission, try holding a different thought next to it. The case was never as public as it felt. The verdict you're afraid of was already reached and forgotten by almost everyone in the room except you. Your brain isn't broken for reopening it. It's simply still waiting for a closing statement nobody else ever needed to hear, because for them, the case was closed the moment it happened, and it has stayed closed ever since. Yours is the only file still on the desk. Maybe it's time to file it away too.